Space is vast, silent, and empty, but maybe it isn't empty everywhere. Maybe some places are better left alone. When we think of the great silence of the cosmos, we usually imagine it as an absence. No voices, no signals, no one out there at all. But what if the silence is selective? What if the galaxy is like an old, sprawling mansion? Rooms upon rooms, corridors upon corridors. But some of those rooms are locked, sealed off, or whispered about as places you just don't go. For all we know, space itself may have forbidden zones, regions where nature or civilization has hung a cosmic keep-out sign. On Halloween, it's worth asking, what would count as the haunted houses of the Milky Way? Not ghost stories in the usual sense, but real astrophysical regions so dangerous, so inhospitable, or so unlucky that no civilization, no matter how advanced, would want to settle there. If humanity one day roams the stars, where are all the places we'd mark on the map with that chilling old phrase, "Here be dragons"? And we will also ask ourselves if it might be that the reason we don't see aliens is because we dwell in such a zone, and the worrisome implications if that was true. We'll begin by looking at entirely natural zones, then look at artificial zones like those left behind by wars, or even cultural ones, before moving on to exotic options and their implications for us. Natural Forbidden Zones, the Haunted Cosmos. On the surface of things, the universe can seem pretty hostile. Indeed, 20% of it is in what is called the Zone of Avoidance, and that includes a lot of our galaxy, as well as a mysterious force known as the Dark Flow, that is the hypothesized large-scale motion of galaxy clusters, all seeming to drift in the same direction, as if being tugged by a great attractor beyond the observable universe. The initial studies suggest this flow was pointing roughly toward the constellations Centaurus and Hydra, near the shapely supercluster. Spooky sounding, but of course the reason why is this term is from astronomy, and the thing to avoid is pointing your telescope there. Not because your eyes will be blasted from your head along with your sanity from looking there, but because that's the galactic disk, the Milky Way in the nighttime sky, and it blocks almost all useful observation beyond it. So when trying to view other distant galaxies and superclusters and learn about them, we avoid pointing telescopes that way in favor of easier to see regions. Unfortunately, the dark flow is in that direction. It was basically 1 in 5 odds, and likely if we could see through it better, we would simply see a large amount of galaxies in that direction exerting force on us. We are pretty confident these days that it is just localized to Owens supercluster and neighboring ones, not a universe-wide phenomena. See our Dark Flow and Great Attractor episode with Joe Scott from years back for a deeper dive. Supernova Graveyards. A star's death throes are some of the most violent events in the universe. A supernova can outshine an entire galaxy for weeks, blasting lethal radiation and shockwaves across light years. For any planet or habitat caught nearby, it's instant sterilization, everything wiped clean. The remnants linger, a graveyard of shadowed star systems where new life struggles to gain a foothold. To future explorers, this zone might seem cursed, beautiful glowing nebulae that beckon with color, but hide skeletons of dead worlds within. However, this tends to be overstated in science fiction and even in more serious science speculation. A supernova is ruinous to its own solar system, would probably not sterilize a life-bearing planet even a few light years away, just cause some mass extinction events. It would also be fairly minimal against a hardened target like an O'Neill cylinder habitat buried into an asteroid, or even an icy body on the outskirts of the supernova system itself. I suspect we will find ways to model a supernova's timing down to a few years, but even now we can say to within 1,000 or so years, and there are shielding techniques to manage it, like placing a very large and literal shield between you and that star. This doesn't need to be all that much material either. Even a supernova in the nearest star system is exposing that neighbor to less energy than it's receiving from its own sun in a day. It's just hitting in a short window and very heavy on X-rays and hard UV. This isn't stripping seas or even sky off a planet, let alone vaporizing a planet. and we can eliminate it by letting something between us and that supernova absorb that energy burst and re-emit it at more bearable wavelengths and timelines. While a Dyson swarm would require a much larger shield, a simple planetary shield for Earth would only need to absorb on the order of 10 to the 21 joules of energy, even for a very proximate supernova, and there aren't any dangerously close. Using carbon as an example, which is super abundant and with a high vaporization energy, you would need just over 100 billion tons of it to soak up that energy without fully vaporizing, and even if it did, the carbon would still be absorbing tremendous energy before dispersing. Once absorbed, that energy radiates back out in all directions, not just toward Earth, and it does so as visible and infrared light, cooling slowly as it's emitted, not X-rays and hard UV. The hotter a shield gets, the faster it radiates, exponentially so, which means a thicker layer buys more stability and time. For perspective, even a shield just a millimeter thick would be adequate. Another option might be compressed inflatables of hydrogen or helium that could be deployed in time to intercept the explosion. The key point is that more mass means slower re-radiation, but it also turns a sudden, focused shock front into a broad, diffuse glow, radiating safer wavelengths and omnidirectionally. A shield placed a few million miles out could reduce the energy reaching Earth by a factor of 1,000,000, even before accounting for the effective redshifting of the blast into less dangerous ranges. So this is why potential supernovae aren't likely to be forbidden zones. Indeed, even tightly packed young star clusters where supernovae tend to occur a lot are probably still considered viable settlement sites, maybe even valuable ones. We also have options like starlifting for pulling matter off of stars to prevent supernovae occurring, or Schroeter thrusters for pushing candidate stars into empty zones to detonate. Short form, not likely to be a forbidden zone. Gamma ray burst scars. If supernovae are local disasters, gamma ray bursts are galactic level weapons. A single burst can sear across tens of thousands of light years, leaving behind a cone-shaped scar where life is erased in bulk. Imagine entire spiral arms riddled with invisible burn marks, zones where civilizations could never rise because they were blasted back to zero before they began. Such places would be the haunted forests of the Milky Way, but once again, I don't think this would pose a true threat to a spacefaring civilization or occur often enough to be a Fermi paradox solution itself. The more worrisome option is that these might be far more numerous as a byproduct of weaponization. The quasar cannon we've previously discussed in our Black Hole Tech episode is a sort of terrifying weapon a species might use for depopulating large tracts of a galaxy. Black holes. This one we can rapidly bypass. The notion of black holes being dangerous is almost entirely a conceit of science fiction. In reality, they are probably the most attractive real estate in the galaxy for any spacefaring civilization, as they make amazing power plants and waypoints for spaceships looking to speed up, slow down, or change directions, even at relativistic speeds, with minimal fuel expenditure. Magnetar death fields. Last but not least, consider magnetars, neutron stars with magnetic fields trillions of times stronger than Earth's. A magnetar could rip atoms apart from thousands of kilometers away, unraveling electronics, brains, and even the structure of matter itself. Settling near one would be like moving into the galactic electric chair. These stars are rare, but terrifying enough that any advanced society would probably leave them as no-go zones, surrounded by warning beacons, or maybe just left for later civilizations to stumble upon, the ultimate cosmic jump scare. Taken together, these natural haunted zones remind us that the universe is not just vast, it is dangerous. These are not good Fermi paradox solutions. They are very small regions of space and few in number, but they may be literally haunted, as rogue civilizations or AI might flee to such places to avoid detection and gain the protection of living in the equivalent of a radioactive wasteland. And this takes us to our next area of discussion: artificially created deadlands. Artificial zones, the cursed ruins of civilizations. Natural hazards are frightening enough, but perhaps more unsettling are the regions of space made dangerous not by stars, but by civilizations. For if nature gives us supernovae and magnetars, then minds give us plagues, wars, and curses, deliberate boundaries carved into the map of the galaxy. And if alien civilizations have risen and fallen across the eons, then surely some of them have left behind not just wonders, but warnings and weapons. Quarantine systems. Imagine a star system sealed off not by walls of fire, but by silence. Its planets, once rich with life, now hushed after an outbreak of some plague that could leap across ecosystems and obliterate whole biospheres. Perhaps it's not disease at all, but runaway nanotech, or an artificial intelligence that went feral, churning through matter like locusts in a field. A responsible civilization might quarantine the region, surrounding it with warning beacons, interdiction satellites, or even automated enforcers. These would be the galactic leper colonies, worlds locked away not for what they are now, but for the horrors they once hosted. And the spookiest part, they might still be inside and waiting. Or they might be more benign. As we explore in our episode on quarantined worlds, a common scenario in science fiction is the classic Star Trek-style prime directive of non-interference, where primitive worlds are quarantined from external influence to protect them, not the other way around. This is also a fairly popular Fermi paradox solution, sometimes framed as the zoo hypothesis, where aliens observe us for insight or entertainment, and sometimes the more Star Trek-like version of leaving us alone for ethical reasons and shielding us from those who might intrude. Indeed, such a quarantine might not just be a single star system, but a fairly large bubble. After all, giving a newly spacefaring civilization 1,000 nearby stars as a safe zone would be quite generous to them, while still only making up a few parts per million of the galaxy. And in practice, we would have trouble spotting even fairly active planetary civilizations much farther away than with our current instruments. Ancient battlefields. If war is as old as civilization, then space may hold its own graveyards of conflict. Picture derelict fleets drifting like ghost ships between the stars, their reactors cold, their crews long gone, but the automated defenses still on patrol, haunting space. A careless traveler might stray into one of these zones and suddenly find themselves fired upon by weapons that haven't been commanded for 1,000,000 years, but are just as potent as the day they were built. We have no shortage of battlefield archaeology on Earth: rusted tanks in deserts, trenches filled with forgotten shells, minefields with unexploded but functional mines in them. Now give them self-repair and even replication abilities, and scale that up to orbiting wrecks the size of cities, littering entire sectors of space. A haunted house is one thing, a haunted armada is another. Sacred skies. Some constellations might be considered holy ground. Perhaps they mark the mythic birthplace of a species, or align with some great cosmic calendar. No colony ships set course for those stars, not because they are dangerous, but because they are revered. To outsiders, such regions look like wasted potential, a cluster of perfectly habitable worlds left untouched. But for those bound by tradition, they are shrines written across the stars, and for those planning to ignore those warnings, armed and automated defenses might lie there, waiting to encourage obedience to the dictum. Entire systems preserved as tombs of ancient emperors, or temples where civilization's greatest relics lie entombed in orbit. Battlefields left in silence to honor the dead. No colonist dares to enter, no traitor crosses the line. Pilgrims may visit the edge of the system, but never intrude upon it. To outside observers, it may indeed look like wasted real estate, a perfectly habitable planet left untouched, but for those who set the taboo, the place is hallowed ground. Of course, one civilization's temple may be another's curiosity, and there's always the danger of explorers deciding the holy site is just a vault waiting to be looted. Tomb raiding is scary enough in movies, imagine on a stellar scale. This one has the advantage that an already inhabited planet inside such a bubble is likely to be left alone, and even the most ardent tomb guards might have second thoughts about a native civilization emerging on a planet in the sacred zone, viewing it very differently than intruders or grave robbers. I haven't seen it as a storyline in fiction, but it might make a good one, where humanity emerges on the scene of an already existing galactic empires and finds itself viewed in the same way we might view a rosebush growing on a saint's tomb. Of course, they might have mixed feelings about us settling other stars in the zone. Exclusion Bubbles. Then there are regions actively sealed off by advanced technology or clock tech. Imagine an invisible wall around a star system, one that no ship can penetrate. Maybe it's a cloaking field hiding an entire civilization, or a minefield of booby-trapped asteroids waiting to punish trespassers. Some might be deliberate political borders, others failed experiments in megastructure engineering, half-finished Dyson swarms collapsing into swaths of shrapnel. And in a darker vein, some could be prisons, or star systems locked in cages, their inhabitants unable to leave, viewed as too dangerous to let out upon the galaxy, but by creatures too ethical to simply wipe them out, so quarantined with outsiders forbidden to approach. Indeed, an unknowing spaceship entering there might be pursued to be destroyed, even if that went to a planet outside the zone, for fear of infection. The other alternative is the interdiction bubble civilization. Vast empires that recognize light speed lag only lets them control so much space effectively. To enforce their borders, they deploy robotic miners and warships, harvesting resources while patrolling a scorched Earth zone beyond their civilized bubble. Perhaps they govern a region 100 light years across, but maintain a surrounding desolation zone twice as wide, one that we ourselves might unknowingly inhabit. These cursed zones are perhaps the most chilling to imagine, because unlike magnetars or gamma-ray bursts, they don't arise by accident. They are the fingerprints of minds, of cultures making decisions to wall off part of the cosmos. If humanity ever comes across one, the real question might not be what lies inside, but why someone thought it had to be locked away. Cultural and psychological zones, galactic superstitions. Not all boundaries in space need to be enforced by fleets or minefields. Some are drawn only in the imagination, and yet they can be every bit as powerful. Just as sailors once whispered of sea monsters and cursed islands, civilizations may avoid whole swaths of the galaxy simply because their stories tell them to. These are the haunted woods of the cosmos, where no one dares to tread, not because they cannot, but because they will not. Taboo Expansion. Other zones may be avoided simply because of rumor, a folk tale about ships that vanish beyond the 8th star, a legend that says no one who crosses a certain nebula ever returns. Over time, the story becomes its own barrier. No one bothers to check if it's true. No one wants to be the first to prove it's false. The galaxy could contain countless such ghost stories, shaping migration patterns the way old superstitions shaped settlements on Earth. My thinking is that this approach doesn't hold up long. Even if the vanishing ships and ghost stories are real, not on galactic timelines anyway. Maybe for a few thousand years a region is considered dangerous and mysterious, but eventually someone comes and clears the place out. But over galactic timelines you might have regions like this emerge after wars and stay that way for a time, then revert to being safe and settled space, then a few tens of thousands of years later become ghost zones again, and the galaxy is a big place so you might have many millions of them. Prison worlds of memory. In some cases, the fear itself outlives its cause. A system might once have been an exile colony or the site of a disaster long since forgotten, but the memory remains, mutating into whispers that something evil still lingers there. The place may be perfectly safe, but reputations have gravity, and they can keep a world empty longer than any minefield. Plus, they may still have active minefields. While we would expect prisoners to die off and be replaced by more civilized descendants, and for defense and quarantine platforms or minefields to decay, technology may make both death and decay things of the past. You could have some engineered hell planet filled with the worst monsters a civilization had, all sentenced to keep living there for eons, outright resurrected by technology if they threw themselves into a volcano or similar, and the minefield around such a planet might be just as durable and regenerative. Today we're talking about the Fermi paradox, and it's one of our favorite topics on the show, and another possible solution we're considering this month is recurring cycles of growth, collapse, and rebuilding. In our October Nebula exclusive, the Fermi paradox, Civilization Extinction Cycles. The first day of each month I share a brand new episode on Nebula, now featuring over 50 exclusives, extended editions, and bonus videos. It's also where every SFA episode premieres early and ad-free. And if the Halloween spirit and you craze more, check out Riff Track's brand new humorous takes on old sci-fi horror films like Giant Spider Invasion and Terror in the Wax Museum from the creators who made us MST3K, just some of the amazing new content on Nebula from myself and other creators. Get a lifetime membership, normally $500 for just $300, by using my link, and enjoy all my exclusives and all Nebula originals for life. Go to go.nebula.tv/IsaacArthur and unlock everything forever, or get an annual plan for 40% off, $36 a year. That's 12 months for the price of 7. Scan the QR code or click the link below to start watching exclusives like the Fermi Paradox, Civilization Extinction Cycle, and don't forget to check out our autonomous space industry, when AI and robots run the economy, our November Nebula exclusive coming out soon. Memetic Hazards. And then there is the most chilling possibility, that knowledge itself is the forbidden territory. Imagine receiving a transmission that explains, in exquisite detail, why you should never have listened. The danger isn't radiation or weapons, but an idea, a piece of information so corrosive that simply knowing it can undo a civilization. Entire archives could be locked away, not because they are false, but because they are too true. One could imagine a beacon above some star, sucking up power and transmitting the detailed mathematical proof that life had no purpose, that Cthulhu was real or similar, and being nigh impossible to destroy. Or maybe they are unwilling to destroy knowledge on principle, so that whole region of space is evacuated or even surrounded by signal scramblers. What if we are in the Forbidden Zone? All these ideas bring us back to the Fermi Paradox. If the galaxy is teeming with life, why don't we see any signs of it? One unsettling possibility is that we are not alone, we're just inside the wrong kind of neighborhood. Let's recap those for a moment. Zoo hypothesis. Perhaps Earth is inside a preserve, cosmic wildlife park. Aliens may watch us from afar, not interfering, as zookeepers do with animals. We are safe, but also contained, and perhaps on display. Similar to simulation hypothesis, this is rather difficult to disprove, as for all we know the entire universe beyond this solar system might be a fake projection, which would be relative child's play for any Kardashev-scale civilization to do to a planet. Dark Forest Hypothesis. A darker alternative is the galaxy is like a haunted forest, where every civilization hides in silence, terrified that to reveal themselves is to be destroyed. If that's true, then Earth, merely broadcasting for a century, may be the naive camper singing in the woods, drawing the gaze of whatever predator is out there. Temporal Forbidden Zone. Or maybe it's timing. The universe is 13.8 billion years old, and has far, far longer left to live, but it could be that civilizations arise in this period and eventually discover methods of FTL, which almost inevitably implies the ability to do time travel. It would not be hard to imagine civilizations establishing barriers in time to prevent anybody going backwards and erasing everybody, or arriving with colony arc ships a billion years after the Big Bang to take it all over for themselves. Universal Forbidden Zone. Imagine for the moment that our whole universe is somebody's forbidden zone in a wider multiverse, and the reason the place is so empty is no one can travel here. Indeed, most scenarios where a black hole can spawn a new universe, a popular theory in cosmology, would not permit travel in either direction. But the reason the galaxy looks so quiet is we're sitting in the middle of someone else's keep out sign. Exotic and speculative zones, cosmic horror territory. Finally, and since it is Halloween, we step beyond reason into the realm of cosmic madness and horror. What if the forbidden zones are not cultural or practical, but fundamental? Simulation boundaries. If we live in a simulation, then some parts of the universe may be less detailed than others, designed never to be reached, edges of the map where reality itself thins out, and explorers who go too far may find only blank code. Causality-Protected Regions. Physics may also hide places from us, regions where time loops upon itself, where causality breaks down, or where entering means being erased from the timeline. These could exist as natural side effects of black holes or cosmic strings, but to us they would be ultimate no-go zones, areas of the universe that simply reject inhabitants. We could imagine wrecked bits of reality too, like the Eye of Terror or warp storms of Warhammer 40,000, inhabited by utterly alien aliens, and slowly leaking into our reality.
Speaking of analogs for hell, I recently was rewatching the cult classic sci-fi film The Cube, as I was slated to prosecute the movie on Reels of Justice, and apparently The Cube was originally going to be set in hell. I do a lot of guest appearances on other shows, and this was my 7th time on Reels of Justice, as I love arguing about sci-fi films, a big surprise, and since it was Halloween we did a sci-fi horror movie. That episode just came out, and if you want to see it or any of my other appearances on Reels of Justice, use the QR code or the link in the episode description.
Alien exhibits. In a chilling twist, humanity may not be free citizens of the galaxy, but specimens in a vast display. Imagine a star cluster carefully curated to show the natural development of civilizations, while beyond its edges the real galaxy bustles. We'd be like fish in a cosmic aquarium, unaware the glass walls exist. The Silent Void. Perhaps some civilizations go further and deliberately erase regions of the galaxy, smothering signals, sterilizing systems, wiping all evidence of themselves. To us, these areas appear as strange, unnaturally quiet patches of sky, like padded cells where light itself is hushed. We think nothing of erasing a footprint to avoid tracking, but to an amoeba, such an effort would be unimaginable. Space may be the ultimate haunted house, vast corridors of silence, rooms locked by physics, doors barred by civilizations, and entire wings hidden by mysteries we barely comprehend. On Halloween, it is worth remembering that while the night sky looks calm and eternal, it may in truth be a graveyard of forbidden zones, places we cannot or dare not go. And yet, there is hope in that too. If there are forbidden zones, maybe they are not just warnings, but invitations. Invitations to caution, to courage, to curiosity, to be careful, but also to be brave. Because sometimes the bravest thing you can do is to light a torch and peek into the dark when everyone else is too afraid. And for my part, I don't think we live in such a forbidden zone, that Earth is protected by its positions, and that's why we've been left alone in an otherwise full galaxy. It really doesn't fit the data unless the forbidden zone is just a small region of our galaxy, but a large region of several million galaxies or bigger. Nor do I think we would have quarantines or sacred regions that endured for billions of years, leaving our planet able to safely evolve to the point that we can think on these topics, rather than being one more colony planet of an alien empire. But, even if I'm wrong on that, if there are forbidden zones, maybe they're not just warnings, but again, invitations to be careful, to be brave, and maybe, just maybe, to peek inside the dark when everyone else is too afraid. To boldly go where none have apparently gone before, because those who built it had little room for the incurious or cowards among their number. Of course, brave and curious does not necessarily mean nice, so it may not be an invitation we want to accept. It may be that all of space beyond Earth is a zone we should avoid. And the thing about a forbidden zone is if someone puts up a no trespassing or beware danger sign, there's a good chance you should pay attention to it.